A lot of guys think that being dominant means raising your voice, acting tough, or pushing harder. They assume that women will respect them if they impress, provide, or constantly prove themselves. But that belief is off base. In the modern world, true power doesn't shout. It doesn't chase approval. It doesn't need validation to be real. The strongest man isn't the one who controls everyone around him. He's the one who doesn't have to beg for attention, affection, or acceptance. He doesn't get manipulated by silence or guilt-tripped into submission. He doesn't crumble when things get hard, and he doesn't twist himself into someone else just to keep a woman interested. Because here's the truth. In relationships, the man who lacks strength becomes a tool, used, led, and eventually swapped out. Not because women are heartless, but because nature is wired to test weakness and follow strength. So no, this video isn't some trick on how to manipulate others. It's about becoming the kind of man who can't be pushed around. If you're tired of giving everything, of being chosen then tossed aside, of never having solid ground in your love life, stay with me till the end. Because I'm going to walk you through 5 Machiavellian principles that create emotional and relational power, the kind that works whether you're single, in a relationship, married, or starting over from scratch. These are the rules that women feel instinctively and men silently respect. Let's get into it. Rule 1. Talk less. Observe more. Real power sits with the man who stays calm and doesn't react on impulse. Most guys lose their power not because they speak, but because they rush to speak. They get defensive right away. They over-explain. They talk themselves into weakness. They reply before thinking things through, and every time they do, they reveal something costly, emotional neediness. Machiavelli spelled this out clearly. He said a prince should avoid being hated or looked down upon, and nothing makes a man more pathetic than inconsistency. In simpler terms, reacting emotionally is a sign of weakness. The guy who panics first always loses. Now, apply that to your dating life. Say a woman goes quiet after a disagreement. Most men freak out. They blow up her phone, send long texts, apologize for things they didn't even do. They think they're fixing things, but what they're really doing is handing over all control. She tested their emotional strength, and they failed the test. Now, zoom out to another context. Imagine you're in a meeting. A colleague interrupts you. Your gut reaction is to raise your voice, fight to be heard. Wrong play. The Machiavellian move? Stay silent. Let the discomfort grow. Let the stillness speak. Then when you do talk, let your words be few, clear, deliberate, and razor-sharp. Real power doesn't shout for attention. It draws attention because it doesn't have to. Machiavelli also said, "He who builds on the people builds on mud." In other words, if your sense of control depends on other people's reactions, especially women's, your emotional foundation is going to crack every time. So what can you do about it right now? Next time a woman pulls away emotionally, resist the urge to fill the silence. Don't chase after her vibe. Stay grounded. Pay attention. Let her sit in the mystery of your stillness. Then, when it's time to speak, do it simply, calmly. Say one thing. No begging. No essays. When a man can remain calm and silent under pressure, he becomes unpredictable, and the moment you're unpredictable, you're also untouchable. You can't be controlled. That brings us to rule 2. Either you control the frame, or you're stuck inside hers. People, especially women, don't respond to logic the way most guys hope. They react based on the narrative they've already built in their heads. And once that internal story is written, even your best behavior can get twisted or misunderstood. Machiavelli put it simply. Most people judge based on appearances, not truth. Everyone can see, but only a few can truly understand. He wasn't being bitter, he was just telling it straight. The way people perceive you holds more power than the facts ever will. And if you're not the one shaping that perception, someone else will, and it won't always be to your benefit. Let's bring this into your love life. You keep bending, giving more, adjusting who you are, hoping she'll finally recognize your value. But the reality? She already labeled you as someone who's trying too hard. And once you've been framed that way, as needy or desperate, even your confidence looks fake. Even your kindness starts to feel like guilt to her. Now flip the script. Instead of proving anything, you slow down. You speak only when it matters. You walk away when it doesn't. Suddenly, you don't need to explain who you are. She starts making her own conclusions. Confident, mysterious, grounded, high value. Why? Because you took control of the frame before trying to shape the outcome. This dynamic plays out the same way in everyday settings. 2 guys walk into a room. One of them is composed, sharp look, quiet presence. He watches more than he talks. People sense his energy. They assume he's important. The second guy tries hard to be liked. He's chatty, over-explains, jumps into the spotlight before anyone even asks. And even if he's more talented, he's perceived as insecure. Same reality. Totally different impression. Machiavelli nailed it. People only see what you show them. Few ever truly see who you are inside. So this isn't about faking it. It's about revealing yourself on your own terms. And here's how you start flipping the frame today. Stop chasing praise. Stop trying to convince. Instead, show up like you mean it. Say what matters, no more, no less. And when it's time to pull back, do it. Let her curiosity do the work. Let her imagination fill in the gaps, not your over-explaining. A man who isn't desperate to be noticed often becomes the one they remember the most. And in a world driven by perception, that's how you win, not by making noise, but by moving in silence. Capture her mind before you ever aim for her heart. Because attraction doesn't begin with looks or actions, it starts in the mind. And if she doesn't respect your clarity of thought, she'll never stay loyal to your emotional effort. Too many men think they can earn love by pouring themselves out emotionally. They send compliment after compliment, overload her with affection, write out paragraphs of feelings. But they overlook a key truth. It's not your effort that creates attraction. It's her beliefs that determine how she sees you. Machiavelli wouldn't have wasted time trying to impress someone who'd already made up their mind. He stood for something deeper. He once said, the best way to measure a ruler's intelligence is to look at the men around him. In other words, your judgment, especially in who you choose to associate with, reflects your inner world. That includes what beliefs you tolerate in others. Let's bring this to relationships. You're texting her all day, sending gifts, doing your best to stand out, to show you're not like the rest. But have you ever paused to ask yourself, what does she actually believe about men? Does she think men are weak? Easily replaceable? Untrustworthy? Does she genuinely want a relationship? Or is she chasing attention? Because if her core belief is, men always let me down, then no matter how thoughtful your gestures are, she'll still walk away. Not because you lacked heart, but because you lacked a strategic approach. Same applies outside of romance. Say you're at a family dinner, trying to get your cousin on board with your business idea. You bring numbers, plans, proof, but his mind's already made up. He doesn't see you as serious. So even with solid evidence, nothing changes. Why? Because people don't move when you show them truth. They move when their beliefs shift. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He once wrote, men are so easily manipulated by their needs that those who deceive will always find someone willing to be deceived. But remember that manipulation begins in the mind. This game isn't fought on the surface, it plays out in perception. Rule 4. Learn to see behind her mask. And do it without triggering her defenses. Every woman wears a mask. Sometimes it shows up as confidence, sometimes it's sarcasm, emotional distance, hyper-independence, or even a need to control. But behind that exterior, there's often an old wound, a quiet insecurity, a fear of rejection she'd never admit. And if you react to that mask at face value, you've already lost the game. You'll end up fighting her walls instead of understanding the fear behind them. You'll take her silence personally instead of realizing what she actually expects from you. But if you can see through the front she puts up, without making it a battle, you gain something far more valuable than a win. You gain leverage. Quietly. Smoothly. Without ever declaring war. Machiavelli saw this dynamic unfold in royal courts and politics in every powerful circle. He wrote, "It is a double pleasure to deceive the deceiver. Not for harm, but for wisdom. For seeing the truth without giving away your own position." Here's how it shows up in everyday relationships. She tells you, do whatever you want. So, you do. And suddenly, she goes cold, detached, dismissive. That isn't indifference, it's disguised vulnerability. She wants to seem unaffected, but inside, she's reacting. Most guys either lash out or start over-explaining. But a man who moves with strategy, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't lash out. Instead, he reflects. He responds with composed understanding, never aggression. He observes how the mask begins to drop once the emotional tension fades. Let's take it out of relationships and into everyday life. Say you're at the checkout counter. The cashier barely looks at you, gives short answers, maybe even comes off as rude. Most people snap back. But instead, you smile gently, slow your energy, and ask, "Rough day." And just like that, her demeanor shifts. The coldness cracks. Because her attitude wasn't about you, it was a reflection of something she's dealing with internally. The same logic applies to women in your life. Often, their resistance or distance isn't personal, it's tied to their own inner conflict. Now imagine you're at a family gathering. An uncle throws shade at your career in front of everyone. Later, you learn he recently lost his job but hasn't told the family. What looked like confidence was really pride. And that pride? A defense mechanism. Had you responded with ego, you would have missed what was really going on beneath the surface. This is what separates men who play the game from those who get played. Don't try to crush pride or correct it. Mirror it. Let her feel understood, not exposed. Ask quiet, grounded questions. Create emotional space without trying to fix her. Then observe. If her pride softens and you start to see her real self, she's worth your energy. But if the mask never slips, if it stays rigid, step back. Quietly. Completely. Because the man who can look past emotional armor without losing his center becomes magnetic, not just to women, but to everyone in the room. Rule 5. Become the mystery she can't figure out. The moment a woman feels like she completely understands you, she starts managing you. Why? Because predictability feels safe, but it doesn't spark attraction. Mystery, on the other hand, evokes something primal: anticipation, curiosity, and respect. Machiavelli never spoke directly about romance, but his insights hit hard here. He wrote, "Men tend to judge more by what they see than by what they feel." In simpler terms, let people see enough to trust you, but never so much that they can control you. Now think about your own relationships. If she can predict your every move, you've already lost the spark. You're always the first to text. You're always explaining yourself. You hand over your emotions, your thoughts, your time like they're owed. At first, she's into it. Then she adapts. Then she checks out. Because you stopped being a mystery and became just another pattern. But a man who moves with purpose, who keeps a few cards to himself, holds her attention. Not by playing games or acting distant, but by staying grounded, thoughtful, unreadable. Picture this. You're at a party. Everyone's talking loudly, bragging, debating, sharing opinions. And you? You're calm, collected, listening more than you talk. You stay composed. People notice, not because you're loud, but because your silence makes them curious. They wonder, who is this guy? That curiosity? That's your quiet magnetism. Same thing happens at work. You don't broadcast every task. You don't defend every idea that gets questioned. You let your results speak on your behalf. And because people can't fully anticipate your next move, they respect your presence more. Here's the specific shift that creates this kind of pull. Stop putting everything on display. Say less than you know. Reveal less than you feel. Move with less than your full strength. Because the moment you become predictable, you become controllable. But when your actions are deliberate, your words intentional, and your emotions contained, you create mystique. And that's what makes you unforgettable. This is the core of masculine presence. If you've made it this far, you've already done what most men avoid. You've looked in the mirror. You've turned away from comfort and walked straight into truth. In a world that conditions men to earn love by shrinking, apologizing, and constantly proving themselves, you've chosen something rare. Self-respect with no strings attached. Most men are stuck in emotional autopilot. They chase approval, then blame women for holding the power. They confuse emotional chaos with connection. They mistake blind obedience for love. But you're building something different. Not noise, not neediness, but presence. Steady, grounded, impossible to ignore. These Machiavellian principles aren't about becoming colder. They're about becoming clearer. They help you see behind the charming masks. They protect your soul from being shaped by someone else's fantasy. Because let's tell the truth. Heartbreak rarely comes from rejection. It comes from being accepted as a version of yourself that was never real. But when you stop reacting and start living with intention, your silence becomes a tactic. Your boundaries become ironclad. And your love? It's no longer a leash. It's a deliberate choice. From now on, you don't owe anyone explanations. You refine who you are. You stop begging for your worth to be recognized and become the man whose value speaks without words. You lead conversations without dominating. You create attraction without performing. You show strength not by shouting, but by what you no longer tolerate. And if you're still here, then congratulations. You've already done something powerful. You've stopped running. You've faced the mirror. And you've chosen to build from truth, not illusion. In a world where men are taught to earn love by shrinking themselves, saying sorry for existing, and performing constantly, you've chosen a rare path: unconditional self-respect. Most men live on emotional autopilot. They chase validation. only to end up resenting the women they gave their power to. They confuse drama for connection. They think intensity equals intimacy. They mistake obedience for love. But you're building something different now. Not noise, not neediness, but presence. Still, rooted, undeniable. These Machiavellian principles aren't about turning you cold. They're about making you clear. They're designed to help you read through the masks that manipulate, to protect your spirit from being molded by someone else's dream of who you should be. This is how kings are forged, not in crowns and castles, but in quiet, deliberate moments of self-control and clarity. So keep going. Keep choosing alignment over approval. Keep defending your peace like it's your kingdom. Because the man who walks in clarity doesn't chase. He attracts. And what he draws in respects him. So stay composed. Stay tactical. Stay sovereign. And never forget, you're not here to be loved for wearing a mask. You're here to be respected for showing your truth. One final message for those ready to take the leap. If you're ready to break away from the 99% and start playing a different game, something I've been working on is coming. And it's going to shift not just how women see you, but how you see yourself. It's on the way, so stay tuned. If this message hit home, don't just let it sit in your head. Drop a comment, even just a few words. It helps the lesson stick, and it might help someone else who needs it more than you realize. If you got value from this, hit the like button, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Go with your gut. We're all working toward the same thing, a mind that doesn't break.